Are you looking for a podcast where you can hear from real people regarding their real dental drama? If so, then you've come to the right place. Join hosts Bethany Petty and Dr. Rena Kuba as we dive into the solutions we've created and the mistakes we've made while managing dental drama. Let's get started. Hello, Managing Dental Drama community. Can you guys believe it? We have arrived. We have made it officially to 2026. I hope you are as happy as I am to be here and to be celebrating this new year. I am super excited about what this year will bring, not only for the dental community, but for each of you that are connected to this podcast or to me as a consultant. I think it's going to be a great year. And I have done a lot of reflection. You guys know that December is my month of reflection. And so I typically do that, but this year's reflection has been a bit different for me because you have heard Dr. Kuba rib me about my ridiculous farm adventures. And we dove into the deep end over this holiday break and helped 7 goats deliver their babies over a 10-day period of time. And you might be asking, oh, hey, have you done this before? Nope, certainly have not. This was our first time. Have never helped anything be delivered besides my own children, and I was not very much part of that, at least wasn't witnessing it or helping myself. So it was quite the adventure and something that I've really been thinking on in between sleep deprivation when I've had moments of clarity. I've thought about what I would do differently through this process, what I've learned in the process, and it really has been extremely fun. Exhilarating is a word that I've used a lot, and terribly exhausting. And as I've thought through it and lived through it over these past couple weeks, I wanted to use this kickoff 2026 episode to be a lesson on what I've learned that I think is applicable to dental teams, practice owners, etc. So that's why the name of this episode is Be the Goat. Yes, be the greatest of all time, but also literally be like a goat. And I'll tell you some of the things that I mean in this. So, like I mentioned, we have 8 female goats. We have 2 bucks. And we successfully, over the summer, bred 7 of those female goats, all within a matter of 2 weekends. So we knew very specifically when their due date was going to be. December 19th was the very first due date, and then all the way up to technically January 2nd. But they have all delivered, and it's I'm recording on January 2nd. So I wanted to kind of walk through some things that are little stories that to kind of describe how the last couple of weeks have been. First of all, we have just such a love for our goats. I am an animal lover anyway, but these goats just have a special place in our heart. And so leading up to these weeks of delivery, knowing that I was completely new, this was foreign territory for me, I, to be perfectly honest, was highly stressed about this. You can't really undo things once they're done. We had 7 goats pregnant. We knew that we were heading into a very challenging couple weeks over Christmas break, but it's like, hey, we're in it. We've made that decision. And so a couple of things that I've thought about since surviving these last couple of weeks has been, first of all, we had a very clear plan to begin with. If any of you know me personally, or for those of my clients who are listening, you know me well enough to know that I love a good plan. I'm a strategy person. To me, most problems in life can be solved with a really good strategy. And so before we even bred these goats, I had gone through and looked at the calendar and figured out when I myself could carve some time off of work, when my husband would be off work, And we knew that we needed to time these deliveries to be when we could be home. Goats can deliver on their own, but they often need support. And the last thing I wanted was to come home to a dead goat mama or a dead goat baby. And so I don't usually take off a ton of time over the holiday break, but I planned this year to make myself available during those due dates and to be off or to be working from home during that time. The reason that we picked winter, why winter? Yes, I've been asking myself the same thing because we spent a couple of frigid cold nights in the barn with a birthing mom. And I was asking myself why. Like, why did you do this to yourself? But we picked winter because goats are prone to parasites. And even though we do all the things to make sure that we've got parasites under control, we knew that winter was a very low parasite load time of year. Summer is a very high parasite load time of year. They like the warm weather and they can survive in warm weather. So we wanted to do our best to protect these goat babies from potential parasites or from the moms potentially picking up parasites and compromising their own health or the baby's health. So knowing that it was going to need to be in the winter, knowing that my husband, who is a teacher, is off for a couple weeks, that is why we picked this particular time. It was such a perfect time, honestly, that is why we chose to breed all of the goats together. Rather than just dabbling with one or two, we decided, hey, this is really going to be the only time of year that's good to birth goats because of the parasite load. And so we're going to do them all at the same time rather than spreading them out. There's no other time throughout the year besides summer. My husband, who's a teacher, is off in the summer. So we could have had some due in summertime, but that would not have been good because of the parasite load. So really winter was our only option. And it is not good to wait too long to breed a goat. You want to breed them early enough that they get used to being a mother earlier in their life. If you wait too late, then they can reject the babes and be like, hey, I don't want to be a mom. So we knew we needed to get them all bred by the time they were a year and a half, which was this summer. So best laid plans, right? Lesson number 1 is best laid plans may not always be the best plan. And so it was interesting as we were breeding the goats this summer, which was a whole lesson in and of itself. I won't go into the details of that, but that was a lesson. But when we were breeding the goats, my husband, who loves these goats as if they were his own children, was like, I don't know how I feel about breeding all of them. And he started kind of like handpicking his favorites. And he's like, are you sure we want to breed this one? Like, what if something happens to her? And so sentimentally, he was having some reservations with breeding these things. And also the breeding process is kind of weird. And he was like, I don't like it. I just don't like it. And so he was already trying to kind of backpedal from our plan. And I was like, I had my consultant mindset on, and I was like, no, this is the right plan. This is what we're going to do. This is the best strategy and the best plan. And we did it and ended up with 7 pregnant goats. And so hindsight is always 2020. And even though the plan made a whole lot of sense on paper, me personally, I wish I would have taken the time to point number 1 is listen to the naysayers. So I wish I would have slowed down to listen to my husband a little bit more. I felt like he was being emotional, sentimental. He didn't really have a lot of facts that he was bringing to the table when he was saying these things. It was more just like emotionally, I don't like it. I don't want to breed all of them. I don't want to have the potential of losing any of them. And so to me, I was like, feelings, blah. Who needs that? The facts are this plan makes sense. And hindsight is 2020. Having 7 goats due during a 10-day period of time was brutal. In so many ways, it was brutal. And first of all, the births are incredibly challenging. And we were there for every single birth. And as by design, we designed it to be that way. They're emotionally exhausting. You might be sitting with a goat for 2 hours while she's laboring very hard, and you're watching this goat struggle, which is emotionally hard. You're catching those babes when they come out and cleaning them off and suctioning their little mouth out to make sure they can breathe, and you're making sure that they can nurse. So you're watching them for several hours afterwards to make sure that they eat and that they look okay. You're watching mom very closely to make sure that she is recovering, that she's able to stand, able to nurse, that she's licking her babies and taking care of them. And so it's not just the goat birthing process, which can be, as short as a couple hours. I would say some goats, we were with them for several hours, 4, 5, 6 hours, sitting with them in a barn before they actually gave birth. And then you tack on all the evaluation time afterwards, and you just realize, wow, that one goat was an all-day event to get her babies birthed. And we actually had 3 goats deliver in one day, which was extra insane. And so on paper, it made sense from a big picture standpoint. All the goats need to be due over Christmas break because that's when my husband's available. That's when I can schedule some time away. And that's when the parasite load is small. Great. But take the time to really listen to the naysayers who may not even really be saying anything that makes sense. It may just be like, I don't think that's going to work. But why? Why don't you think that's going to work? And I think if I would have taken the time to really slow myself down and listen to what my husband was trying to say, or given him an opportunity to flesh out his feelings a little bit more, I think I would have realized that he probably had some valid things to say. But because he was leading out with feelings, I don't like this, my poor little goat babies, I think I should have pushed past those objections and really listened to some of the true objections that he was likely having. Because hindsight is 2020, and I would never again go back and breed all of our 8 goats or 7 goats at the same time. That made it exceedingly challenging. So listen. Step number 1: listen to the naysayers. Even though the naysayers can be Debbie Downer for you, sometimes you're just like, oh, they never think anything's gonna work. Sometimes those naysayers have a valid point, and it's worth it for you to kind of slow down, consider their opinion. You may reject the opinion and still move forward on your path, but at least you've taken the time to pause and think through why they may be opposed to this particular plan. So, step number 2, or point number 2 that I've learned in this process is that you really can never be too prepared for anything in life. Preparation is key. And I know Dr. Kupa and I preach this a lot on the podcast, but to me, an ounce of precaution is worth a pound of the cure, that age-old adage. It is true though. And I think we know that in business. We don't always abide by that in business, but I think sometimes nature teaches us that preparation really is essential to life, to health, to all of the things that are necessary to keep your business afloat. So I'll give you a few examples. Like I said, we had 0 experience in this. We've had our goats for by this point almost 2 years, but we were new to goats. We've been learning about goats over these last 2 years. We had never experienced a goat birth or anything like that. My mom always jokes that when I was a kid, we had a cat that had kittens, and they woke us up in the middle of the night to go and watch these kittens being born. And all she remembers is the shades of green that I turned. And so she was laughing as we were preparing for this goat season. She was like, of all the kids, I would not have expected you to be okay in this process. And so I knew we were severely disadvantaged stepping into this goat season. So before we bred the goats, I did all kinds of research on best breeding methods, what to do, what not to do in the breeding process, but I also spanned forward and started preparing for worst/best case scenario. What if all of these goats get pregnant? Then what? And I started looking into what we needed from a shelter standpoint, knowing that these ladies were going to be delivering during the winter. I knew we needed a warm place that babies freezing is possible, and I didn't want that to happen. I know that they do not like to birth in a group setting. They are very protective, and it's very easy for other goats to step on the goat kids or to even intentionally injure the goat kids. And so I knew that they needed private, they're called kidding stalls. And there's so many different varieties of kidding stalls that we could do. I had to think about what made the most budget sense, where to put these kidding stalls. I had to start building out the floor plan for these kidding stalls and thinking about the materials that we would need. And all of this is happening, honestly, even before we bred the goats, before we even knew how many goats we had pregnant. And so then fast forward again, I'm starting to watch videos on goat births. I'm starting to read what kind of diet do the moms need to be on to prepare for goat birth, to prepare for milking. All of the things that go into this. It is so much more complex than I'll divulge in this podcast. But ultimately, there was a lot of prep that started happening before we even bred the goats. In all honesty, we were preparing for breeding the goats before we even bought them because we knew that we wanted to sell a certain caliber of goats. And so I wanted only registered goats. And so before we even bought goats, we were researching not only whether they were registered from the farms that we were going to be looking into, but what was the farm quality? What were the reviews on those farms? What protection measures did they have in place? So the prep has been, honestly, to get to this point where we've had 15 kids born to this farm in a 10-day period of time. It took years, 2 years of prep, if not more than that. And so I think preparation spared us from so much potential that could have gone wrong. Because we were prepared, we had all of the appropriate feed available to make sure they had good and easy deliveries for the most part. We had kidding stalls built. Now, we ended up running out of kidding space, so we had to do some pivoting in the process, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. But we had nice kidding stalls available. We hand built everything to make sure that it was up to our standards. I had a goat birthing kit, which was like a little tackle box that had anything and everything I might possibly need in that goat birthing process, from an emergency standpoint, or even just from a prep standpoint. Gloves and lubricant and scissors to cut the cord if need be, dental floss to tie off the cord if need be, a little, basically, bottle is the best way to describe it in case the kid didn't nurse within the first couple of hours. And so all this prep went to ensure that we had a smooth process. And I will tell you guys, that prep paid off big time. Even though I was still shaking in my boots in that first birth all the way through the 7th birth, to be perfectly honest, I was nervous Nelly. I still felt like I had more confidence because of the preparation that I put in. It was literally a year or more of just studying and preparing to make sure that these last 10 days went well. Our businesses require the same level of attention, because if we are thinking about our business, planning for our business, preparing for our business, projecting for our business, then we are putting together the best toolbox to ensure that our business has all the tools, all the resources that it needs to not only protect from an emergency, but also to fulfill the projections that we have for it. So, for example, one of the things that I don't think we spend enough time on is projecting. Let's say that you're in an area that is just booming. It could be a town of 2,000 people or 200,000 people, but the market that you're in, it's just booming right now. Have you projected for that? Are there 2 new neighborhoods going in near your practice? Okay. What are you doing to prepare for that potential practice growth? Are you making more availability on your schedule? Are you creating your own kidding stalls, right? You're creating these spaces where you can grow into, whether that's new chair space, whether that's additional team members. What are you doing to make yourself available for that growth? How are you marketing to these new these new neighborhoods that could be potential for your practice? So projections and planning for those projections are incredibly important, but probably even more importantly than that, the more you plan, the more you prepare, the more you study up, the more confidently you tackle the challenges ahead of you. If you're flying by the seat of your pants, you are not going to feel confident in any decision that you make. While I wasn't confident is not the word that I would use stepping into this kidding season that we just survived, but I felt prepared. There was a calm steadiness that I knew I had done everything in my power to be prepared for this. You're never going to feel fully prepared, but I felt ready. And I want you to experience that same level of readiness. And you do that by preparing, studying, exposing yourself to all of these different strategies and tools and tips to get yourself ready for a season that your practice might experience. So that is number 2, be prepared. And don't wait to be prepared. Prepare ahead of time. You can never be too prepared too early. One of my tips and what I did through this goat birthing process was I imagined the worst case scenario, and then I planned for that worst case scenario and studied for it and got the supplies that I needed. So what's the absolute worst that can happen, and what can I do to be prepared for that? And I think that's a good strategy for you in on your team or in your business. Number 3, you need resources. I am just so thankful that we put together some good resources prior to this goat kidding season. So we thank God that 5 of our 7 delivered during the day, and 5 of those 7 deliveries were relatively straightforward. We had to make judgment calls in the birthing process, things that I was uncertain on that I needed to be able to look up real quickly. So I had on my phone, I had on my browser several goat pages that I've come to trust as good resources. I had those preloaded on my pages so that when I went to Safari, pulled open my pages that I had up, I could easily click on those for a quick reference. I made sure that my phone was ready for me to ask Siri questions in case my hands were tied up and I couldn't pick up my phone. We have a fantastic, beloved babysitter of ours that is very experienced with lots of different kinds of births, but she has been through a lot of goat births, and she gave us some tips prior to the birthing season. And the first birth, I kind of freaked out on and was like, I'm not sure. I don't know if she has any more kids. I don't know how to assess for that. And she was Johnny on the spot, came right over, assessed the goat, looked at the babies, and just kind of talked me down to make sure that I felt good. And she was our resource in the middle of the night, honestly, on our last goat birth. Just when you think like, oh my gosh, we're on the last one, it's going to all be okay. We just got smacked in the face with our 7th goat that had a very, very long and difficult labor, and we had to intervene quite a bit to be able to get that baby out. And our beloved babysitter Abby was FaceTiming with us the whole time, and it was the middle of the night, and she was such a fabulous resource. We had a vet, an on-call vet that did warn us that she's out in the field all day, every day, and isn't usually able to return phone calls or emails until that evening. So we knew we had limited access to her, but we knew that if we had a question for her, that she would get us a response. She just wasn't going to be our on-call person during the deliveries. And we knew that. And there were a couple times we had to email her some questions, and she was able to get back with us the next day. So get resources in place. I can tell you now that we would have lost a goat kid had it not been for Abby on the phone with us, FaceTiming with us in that 7th delivery. I don't know what I would have done with a couple of the questions that I had that were critical but not time sensitive if our vet had not gotten back with us. So you need to have resources in place to help you in either a moment of crisis, a moment when you need to make a really good decision. I would challenge you to build a list of people that, you know, the term Rolodex is probably a lost name at this point, but have your people that you can flip through and contact for anything related to the business. And these people should have some level of knowledge to be able to advise you appropriately. So I can't tell you how many times I have a client that their main resource is their spouse or their partner. And while that's helpful, it's helpful to have a sounding board, I don't think that should be your primary resource. Even if they are intimately involved with the practice, you need more than just your spouse or your partner as a resource. You need somebody beyond that. So get your resources together for who's going to answer your questions about management or HR, about compliance, about your profit and loss, whatever. Go through all of the things that you might need in your business and get your resources together. You need people in your court. Look for people that want to help you, that want to be there, and that have the availability to be there for you. So that's point number 3, build your resources. I'm going to give you one more point here based on the lessons that I've learned. And then I am saving the rest of the nitty-gritty details on these goat births and these tips for our subscribers. So I'm going to finish up with point 4, and then subscribers, you guys will get the rest of the points in the bonus episode. So go there to get those details. Okay. Number 4. Sometimes you lose. And I hate to end on a negative, especially with the New Year's episode, but sometimes you experience a loss. And no matter the amount of preparation, no matter the amount of resources you have, no matter how prepared you've tried to be, sometimes you lose. It is a fact of life. And again, nature teaches us this better than anybody else. We had our sweet little Pepper girl, Pepper Potts is her name, and she's a beautiful goat, this beautiful black and white spotted goat with these gorgeous blue eyes. And Pepper has a soft spot in my heart because she had been bit by something early on when we first got her, developed hives all over her body. We had to just torture the poor thing, drenching her with meds. And so she has been a little standoffish from us ever since. And so I was nervous how Pepper Pot's delivery would go because we have to have food in our hands for Pepper to come to us. And even then, it's like, feed me a little bit and then I'm on my merry way. And this goat birthing process is very intimate. You are, right there with them in this small kidding stall, and they really have to accept your help and receive your help. And so Pepper had been laboring for a while. And I had kind of let her have her distance, but I was sitting in the barn with her. This was late into the night. And I knew that it wasn't seeming like the normal deliveries that we've had. Something felt off to me, but I couldn't really put my finger on what it was. My husband was there. We were both tag teaming this, trying to figure out how to help Pepper. But ultimately, Pepper finally developed, there's this fluid sac that comes out first. And so finally, after stimulating her to keep contracting, finally this fluid sac appeared. And I was like, oh, thank God this fluid sac has appeared. We're golden now. But I realized pretty quickly that the wrong parts of that goat were coming out. And so I knew that it was a breech birth, which is not ideal at all. And so once the fluid sac came out and I saw the feet, the back hooves protruding, then I was able to kind of watch those feet and see if they were coming out. And the feet looked a little funny to me. They were very, very short, and I could tell that they were attached to a body. Goats have these long legs, and these legs were really, really short. I was like, that is odd. And so she struggled and struggled and struggled. And I realized we've got to help pull this baby out. Something's not right. So I began to pull on the little baby's legs as hard as I could. And I realized this baby's not giving. Like, I can't get this baby out. Pepper's really struggling. So my husband came over and we both together had to pull this baby out. And this baby was something, it did not develop correctly. It had a gigantic stomach. I still don't know how Pepper got this thing out. It was a huge swollen baby that I knew as soon as I could see the face, I was like, this baby's dead. It was not dead, but it had died in the process of birthing, and I believe it died due to deformities, that it wasn't properly formed. So once we got this baby out, we did everything we could to resuscitate the baby, but ultimately we knew it was gone. When you think about a situation like that, there's absolutely nothing that we could have done to make that baby form correctly. There's nothing that we could have done to help that baby to be born alive. It was wrong. There was something wrong with it from the get-go. And the preparation, our support team couldn't have helped us with that. The resources that we had, we could have Googled the heck out of that, and it wouldn't have made that baby any less deformed. Sometimes we're just going to lose. And we can either choose to allow that loss to completely obliterate us and defeat us, or we can go, such is life. And sometimes life gives us a loss. Such is practice ownership. Such is team drama from time to time. Every once in a while, we're just going to be knocked down. And nobody wants that. We're certainly not going to aim for that. We're going to aim for successes. But at the end of the day, we can get knocked down. We can experience a loss. And it's how we respond to that loss that is so critical. So in the case of Pepper Potts, I had prepared for almost everything, and I had not prepared for a dead baby being born. And so we quickly were able to access our goat resources on our saved resources. There's some emergency forums that we had already saved that we were able to put the question out, what do you do in this case? And so we left the baby with mom, with Pepper, even though it was dead. The advice that we received from our resources was leave the baby with mom until she walks away from the baby and leaves the baby. And then it's okay to take the baby away, which is what we did. And we moved on from that. It was so sad. Still, it just makes me so sad because she just had the one baby and it happened to be the dead baby. But there can be good things that come from losses. We can learn. We can be better prepared next time. Now I know if next kidding season, if we have a dead baby that's born, I know exactly what to do.
we can also experience some new joys from loss. So Pepper and I are now very tightly bonded. I think part of it was we went through that experience together. My hands for days, I think she smelled her baby on my hands, and she would just lick my hands. I was having to milk her because obviously she didn't have a baby milking off of her. So we got to experience that new thing together. And so Pepper and I have a great bond now. She's the first one to run up to me, to love on me when I go and check on the goats. And that wouldn't have happened had we not gone through a loss together. And I think the same lesson can happen in our practice. When we experience a loss or a setback or something that just really knocks our team down, the way that we respond to it is going to help us experience something good out of that loss. So how are we rebounding? What are we learning? What are our key takeaways from this process? So I think that's a great spot to end today's episode for all of our Managing Dental Drama listeners. I hope that you'll take these goat lessons and you'll be the goat. You'll just be the greatest of all time. That 2026 will be your best year ever. That is my hope for you all. And I think if you take some of these tips, you have a better chance of that happening. For part 2 on this, subscribers, I've got lots more tips. If you are trying to figure out how to become a subscriber, then look in our show notes and we'll show you exactly where to go. You want to become the Practice Pro subscriber to get not only the bonus episode, but also our January digest, which as always is chocked full of amazing resources. You really do not want to miss out on what we have for you to be able to kick this year off right. Once again, Happy New Year, everybody. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for joining the conversation today. We hope that you are comforted in knowing that you are not alone, but we also hope that you're walking away with some really great tips and tricks to try in your practice. We value your feedback, so please take a few moments to rate and review the podcast. Finally, we want to make sure that we're covering the topics that matter to you. So track us down on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and let us know what topics you want us to cover. As always, please know that we are rooting for you today as you manage your dental drama.